Over the last couple of seasons, the Detroit Lions have continued to rise and grow in the NFL hierarchy. But now, with this offseason about to start, the Lions have a chance to really shock the NFL. We're going to talk about it in today's episode, folks, so stay tuned.
We used to be a team no one respected. We used to be a team no one feared. That was then. This is now.
First victory of the year on the line. Goff's got it. Back, looks, throws, end zone. Yes! Caught!
You know who we are.
10, 5, end zone. Touchdown, Detroit Lions.
And you know where to find us. We won't be far. We'll be on your front porch waiting for you. We are the New Era Lions. And
we are driven by Detroit.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to yet another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. I'm your host, David T. Pike, and as always, we're diving in. But before we dive on in, I just want to again say thank you all to all my loyal fans and subscribers that are coming on back to the show. Really means the world to me that have such loyal fans. And to those that are tuning in for the very first time, I just want to say thank you all for giving my show a shot. I hope you all enjoy the content. But even more so, I hope to gain your subscription if I've earned and deserved it. And with that being said, to everybody, I just want to say I hope you all are having a great day. God bless. And let's dive into the show here. So, the Lions right now, they kind of find themselves in a rather unique, rather interesting place that they have seldom if ever been in, the last 20, 30, 40, 50 years. And that is that they are both a good team, but they're also a team that has money to burn. Because we have to think about this here. Teams that are usually good don't typically have a lot of money to burn because they've usually used that money to acquire good talent. But the Lions, on the other hand, have actually figured out the right way to have a lot of money to burn, but at the same time are at a good spot. Because right now, the Lions roughly, if you take a look at either Spot Rack or you take a look at Over the Cap, they have about $45 million of effective cap space to sign or extend players with. Now, what exactly do I mean by that? What I mean by that is they have about $45 million worth of money that they can go out and they can sign or extend players that they already have on the roster. That's already taking into account that there's about $12 to $15 million of the cap space that is being set aside for the team to be able to go out and draft and sign their draft picks. So, the Lions have about $45 million to go out and do with whatever they want to. I'm going to call that their play money. Now, like I was saying, normally a team as good as the Lions is right now, they would be struggling to stay under the cap because, well, we have to understand something. Ever since the cap room really started getting implemented in the NFL, it's really been something that has kept teams in check from being able to dominate the league for the most part, unless you're a team like the Patriots that had Tom Brady who really helped you out in being able to use the cap space for your ability to maintain the roster by taking lesser deals. But the point is, normally for good teams, it's very hard for them to stay under cap and at the same time remain a good team over a long period of time. But the Lions have been able to maintain and manage their finances rather stupendously, so that way they've gotten themselves to this point to where, hey, we're both a good team, but we've also got cap to burn. Now, here's what I know about this. If you've got $45 million to work with, you got a lot of money to play with. You've got a lot of money to potentially grow, expand, and build even more so. Now, here's what I find rather interesting about all this. If you go to NFL.com, according to them, their opinion writers, there are 8 teams right now that have supposedly the largest 8 Super Bowl windows. Some of them I agree with, some of them I don't. But again, I'm not getting into that right now. I'm just talking about what's at NFL.com as far as the largest Super Bowl windows. The 8 teams that are on that list are the Chiefs, the Lions, the Ravens, the Cowboys, the 49ers, the Browns, the Packers, and the Jets. Like I said, some of those teams I agree with, some of those teams I don't agree with. However, though, regardless of that point, I decided to go to Over the Cap, and I decided to go to Spot Rack. And I decided to take a look at, okay, how much cap space do each one of those teams have? If you take a look at each one of those teams, the Lions, by far and in large, have the most cap space out of all of those teams. In fact, realistically, only 4 out of those 8 teams right now are even in the positive. They're in the black. The rest of them are in the red. The only teams that actually have positive cap space right now are the Jets, the Ravens, the Lions, and the Chiefs. And of those teams, the Lions by far have the most cap space. The Chiefs are looking at about $15 million. The Ravens are looking at about $5 million. And the Jets are about $2 million. The Lions, like I said, are at about $45 million in cap space. So the Lions are head and shoulders way above everybody else as far as Super Bowl window concerned in terms of cap space, which right now gives them a huge advantage being able to say, okay, we have cap space, we can potentially go out and make this team even better, so then that way we can really contend for a Super Bowl. So, if you think about it that way, the Lions are in a really good spot because, like I said, head and shoulders. The next closest team is the Chiefs, and the Lions are like $30 million in front of them in terms of cap space. Now, I decided to start checking around, and I decided to say, okay, here, what's in the news? According to a recent report from Sideline Report, the Lions could add even more cap room to this offseason with a potential of up to $40 million. Think about that, folks. $40 million more worth of cap space. Now, I'm not a mathematician by any stretch of the word, but $45 million plus another $40 million, you're looking at freaking $85 million in cap space. That is a lot of damn money to play with. Now, the real question is, do the Lions really need $40 more million to play with? No, they honestly don't. But I'm going to say this. If the Lions do want to go out and they want to go and get one of those top-end free agents, they want to potentially swing a massive, home run trade, you would need that kind of cap space because you're going to want to bring in a player of high value and you're going to need some cap space to offset that. Now, I don't know if necessarily Brad Holmes and the Lions are going to do that. Again, Brad Holmes and the Lions have had a very unique way of building this roster. They're not necessarily going out trying to swing for the fences and bring in guys that are, huge contracts. But at the same time, this roster definitely could use some improvement in certain areas, such as cornerback and edge rusher. And when you think about some of the guys that are out there right now, if you decided, hey, I want to go and get some of that top talent, you might be interested in potentially extending that cap room so that way you could potentially get one of those guys, such guys like L'Jarius Sneed, Jalen Johnson, Hunter, Josh Allen, Brian Burns. These are guys that the Lions people have been talking about for weeks, and it's like, hey, if you want to go and get one of those guys, you're going to need the cap space. So what are the moves that could potentially the Lions could do to add those $40 million that we're talking about here? Well, two of the moves everybody kind of already knows. And these have been moves that were brought up earlier. So I'm not really going to go too in depth with them. But the first two moves are by cutting players. And that would be cutting John Kaminsky and cutting Tracy Walker. Now, personally, I'm going to say this. There is merit in both of these guys getting the supposed axe. And here's the reason why I think there's merit in them. One, you have to think about it with Tracy Walker. He's largely been overshadowed ever since he got injured. And on top of that, we've got guys already that are playing at a much better level than he was playing before he got injured in Kirby Joseph, Brian Branch, and Ify Melifonwu has really started to come on the scene. Plus, on top of that, his contract is just really too large to be a backup player or a role player. So realistically, he would either have to restructure his contract or he'd have to get cut. Well, realistically, restructuring doesn't do a whole lot for the Lions because it's only going to give us about $3.5, $3.7 million of the supposed $10 million we would get if we were to cut him. And you realistically have to think about this. Despite the C.J. Gardner-Johnson injury, and despite the fact we were in the playoffs, and he was a healthy scratch for all three of those playoff games, it really just kind of spells out that the Lions are getting ready to move on from him, or they're getting ready to potentially ask him to take a pay cut. So there's that one. Now, John Kaminsky, on the other hand, I think it's just unfortunate for him because it's like, listen, he is in a position where on that defensive line, he's got a lot of other guys that are vying for reps, and this offseason we're supposed to add even more talent to the whole mix. So to me, it's just like, listen, with more people coming in, there's already a lot of people on that line. I just think it's a really crowded room, and unfortunately, I just don't really see how he's going to be able to, kind of etch out a little area for him because the more we add, the less reps there's going to be for him. So it's like, listen, these are guys that I think it's like, you know what, you've just kind of been outplayed, you've just kind of been outdone by other guys and by the needs of the roster. So it's gonna be like, hey, we have to make space, we have to make room. So that's part of where I think that $40 million could come from. Of those two, I think Tracy Walker is more likely to get the axe because John Kaminsky has done everything that the Lions have asked him to do, and while he's been out on the field, he's done very well. So I think if of those two, Kaminsky would stay, Tracy Walker would go. Now, the other two moves that the Lions could do to get that $40 million to appear are actually extending two players. And these two players, I think, will really, really help the Lions out to actually get that money. And that's extending Taylor Decker and extending Jared Goff. According to Sideline Report, extending these two would free up almost $30 million in cap space. Actually, a little over $30 million because they say if you extend Taylor Decker, it's about $10 million. If you extend Jared Goff, it's almost $21 million. So you're talking about $30 to $31 million of new cap space coming up if you were to extend these two guys. Now, understand something here, folks. Both of these men have expressed a huge desire to remain in Detroit, and there's very little reason to think that neither of them will not get extended, especially Jared Goff. Taylor Decker, he's consistently been one of the better tackles out of both right and left tackles that has been in the NFL, and he's been one of the most overlooked as well. Plus, on top of that, for the Lions, he's considered the old guard. He's been there for a long time. He's been consistently really good for them. I don't see any reason why the Lions would not give him another contract. And I believe Brad Holmes will eventually make a deal come up for him. Now, Jared Goff, I could go into a long literal video about this, which I already did. I'll put the video back up top for this. But here's what I'm going to say. Jared Goff is going to get a contract extension. It's merely a formality at this point. The problem for a lot of people, like I said in the video I'm referencing to, is the mere amount of years and time and actual money he's going to get and how that all breaks down. But realistically, you're talking about a quarterback in Jared Goff for the last 2 years with the Detroit Lions, has been a top 10 quarterback. He has literally, over the last 3 years with the Detroit Lions, been one of the best quarterbacks in the league statistically, and he literally got the Lions to within a whisker of going to the Super Bowl this year. There's no reason why the Lions will not extend Jared Goff. Absolutely none. Now, I know some people are going to say, okay, but David, back up here. This sounds all well and good. You're talking about opening up $40-some million worth of cap space for this season. But here's the problem. Eventually, you're going to have to pay the piper. So, okay, you open up all that cap space this year. How is that going to work when you get later on into all the other years once you start adding all that money? Because it's like, listen, okay, you've extended Jared Goff, you've extended Taylor Decker, but we also have to extend Penei Sewell at some point. We also have to extend, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Aiden Hutchinson. These are all guys that are eventually going to start coming up. I understand that, folks. This is why I'm saying this is merely me reporting. I'm going to tell you this right now. I don't know how Brad Holmes is going to make all this work. There's a reason why he's in the front office and I'm not. But I will say this. If the Lions have proven anything over the last, 3 years, ever since Brad Holmes, Mike Disner, Dan Campbell, and a lot of them took over for the Lions, they never ever put themselves in a position where they're going to be strapped for cash. They always know how to get the most value out of contracts while still remaining in compliance with the cap space, within the cap rules. And to me, it's like, okay, the Lions already have $45 million this year. We already know the Lions are going to extend Jared Goff. Extending Taylor Decker is also probably going to happen. So if what I see from Sideline Report is to be held true, which I'm not saying it's not, but at the same time it could also not be, let's just say hypothetically it is, if you add another $31 million worth of cap space for this year, we also have to understand how the NFL cap space works a little bit. The NFL has it to where if you have a certain amount of cap space left over from a certain year, I think it's like $5 million or something like that. It could be less. But the point of the matter is, if you have cap space that's left over from a previous year, you can roll that over into the next year. So let's just say the Lions don't use all of their cap space this year, and let's say they have $10, $15 million left over. That cap space will then roll over for them to the next year. So even if you have all this money that you've spent this year, if you still have a lot of cap space left over, it's going to roll over into the next year and into the next year after that. Again, that's how the NFL allows teams to be able to be smart and yet at the same time fiscally responsible with the cap space. It's like, hey, if you're not going to blow all your money, you can roll it over into the next year. Now again, whether or not that's going to help the Lions in the long run, I don't know. All I can simply say is this. The Lions have put themselves into a brilliant position to shock the NFL because it's like, listen, if you have $80 million to play with, that pretty much means you have a whole literal wide open door to try and improve the roster even more so than what you already have. And let's think about it. The Lions roster is pretty damn improved. It's pretty damn set. It just needs a couple of little, additions here or there, and then the Lions could potentially be realistically going to a Super Bowl. My whole point of the matter is this. You have this much cap space, and you have this roster set up the way it is right now. Yeah, the Lions are literally about to shock the NFL. They are about to be like, okay, not only do we have a roster that we believe in, but now we're about to add more to it, and now you guys are going to see what a fully stocked, a fully powerful offense and defense of the Detroit Lions can really do. And that's something that I'm really looking forward to potentially seeing one way or the other. But anyway, folks, I just figured I'd talk about this. I thought it was a really interesting point and a really interesting episode. A lot of people always want to talk about the cap space. They always want to talk about, hey, what could the Lions potentially do one way or the other, or whatever their team is that they're talking about. But having said all that, I think I'm going to end the episode here, and I just want to say thank you all for watching in another episode of MCM Motor City Mania. If you like what you saw, by all means, I highly encourage you all to watch the next episode. Also encourage you all to do one of these three things: like, comment, and subscribe. If by chance you've subscribed in the past, you forgot to do so at the time, or you just subscribed and not had a chance to do so, again, want to highly encourage you all please to subscribe. It really helps me out, and I'm thankful for every subscription that I can get. But I also want to encourage y'all, please, make sure you turn on that bell notification icon as well, so that way you never miss any more content that I push out. Again, subscription numbers are always going up, but we want to make sure you guys keep coming back, so please make sure you turn on the notification icon. I also want to encourage y'all, please, to share this content with your Lions friends and family members. Share it here on YouTube, share it on Twitter, share it on Facebook, share it anywhere and everywhere you can with everybody and anybody that you can. The more we share it, the better the channel grows, the better the channel spreads. And again, I'm ever so thankful for every share that I possibly can get from my subscribers. And with that being said, to everybody, I again just want to say thank you all for watching the content. I hope you enjoyed it. Also hope to gain your subscription if I earned and deserved it. And if not, hopefully I'll get another chance to do so in the future. But until that time, I just want to say to everybody, God bless, and I hope you enjoyed the content. And until the next time we meet, I'll see you all in the next episode.